Here we go, here we go. Hot Rod's blazing topic. It's your boy Hot Rod here back with another one. Here with another episode. Today I got a special guest. Amir. How you doing, brother?
What's up? How are you?
Man, first of all, Happy New Year, man.
Yeah.
2023.
Didn't think we'd make it, man. Didn't think we'd make it.
Yeah, right. Especially after these rough couple of years that we have. I think it's the first time we probably hearing much about pandemic and COVID and all that.
Yeah.
Because usually we're scared around the holidays, like especially coming off of Christmas, well, Thanksgiving, Christmas, and New Year's, and people, stay away. You know, these numbers spiking up again. But you know, knock on the wood, right? But I'm glad to hear that. At least the first time I heard after the New Year's that these numbers haven't been spiking or any conversation really about COVID.
Yeah.
So, I'm glad to hear that, man.
Yeah.
Man, thank you once again for coming on, man. Definitely let the people know, a little bit about yourself. Amir is a person, I'm going to say, he's a recent graduate. We both studied the same field, MSP. Went to Temple just like I did. I graduated last spring. He just graduated last month in the fall. Shout out to Amir, man. Shout out to Amir, man. Listen.
Thank you.
It's from experience, I can tell you, it's a rough journey.
Yeah.
It was a rough journey, and I know because we went into Temple the same year, 2020, right?
Yeah.
So I transferred in there, you went in there too, and it's to see that you finished and you held on strong, dude. I commend you.
I appreciate that, man. I appreciate that. And, definitely.
So, man, introduce yourself a little bit, man. Let the viewers know who you are, what you like,
So I went to school with Rodney. MSP program with definitely a focus on the audio aspects of it. I was a bartender, server guy for many years, and then the pandemic had started, and I decided I wanted to go back to school. The two really didn't have anything to do with each other, but they almost kind of did, which is funny because the first time I ever met Rodney was when it was virtual. It was on Zoom. It was crazy. We were like in groups doing whole projects together. So it's just funny to see it like culminate into, what we got going on here today. So now what I do, basically, I produce music. I work out of a studio. I mix and master music remotely or through the studio, all that. So, also an artist as well.
You say you mixed and master out of the studio. Is that your own personal studio?
So I have like my brand, which is Eddie Nash Productions. So a lot of the business that gets done out of there gets done out of my home studio. So I would say like a step above a bedroom producer, pretty professional stuff, nice mic collection. But then I also work out of Third Story Recording in West Philadelphia, which is one of the longest running recording studios in Philadelphia.
Oh, so man, where can we find it? So people who may be interested in trying to find you, they need an audio engineer. Where can they find you?
So you can find me as my name, Amir Matuk, on Fiverr if you need like me to mix and master your music or anything like music production related. If you're in the greater Philadelphia area trying to record or do something, you can hit me up at Third Story Recording on 5210 Walnut Street in West Philadelphia. Definitely a very interesting place with a lot of character. That believe like Fall Out Boy recorded there once, and then like the Disco Biscuits, so a lot of history there. And I'm in the process of moving a lot of the older gear out of there, like selling it so we can revamp it for like a more modern look coming into 2023.
And listen, y'all, I heard some old Amir beats before we started this episode, and I can tell you, the guy got a lot of skills, a lot of talent there. So definitely check him out. There's a lot of rappers out here, man. We need some engineers.
Yeah,
so, Hey, for sure, man. Definitely check Amir out. Amir, we definitely gonna start on the topic. This talk to me. Think about this topic here, right? I'm talking about music.
Okay.
I'm glad I wanted you on to talk about music because I would look at you as a person who knows a lot of history when it comes to music. I know since the first time we've met, you were always debating music with me, and I'm a whole fan.
Yeah, love Hov. Hell yeah.
And I always used to want to know about, hey, what is your input on that? Ether when Nas came out.
Oh that's coming back into the.
So it's like the rap beefs, right? And But the thing about it, rap beef was always just rap beef, right? And,
Sure.
And now you looking today. For me, I feel like it's not even just rap beef now. It's just senseless killing coming from rap. And you know, you and I would say we're a little bit of old school guys. We like to listen to classic non-violent beef, you know what I mean? The traditional
literally
style.
Violent, yes.
Yeah, just keep it on the track. But now you're seeing today the new music style, you know, drill music, right?
Yeah.
A lot of it is just violent killings and, you know, people really, literally rapping about crimes they committed.
Yeah.
And now you're seeing it even today where...
In this city, man. Yeah.
You see it in their city, the influence that it's having on these kids, today's generation, you would say.
Yeah.
And I mean, I just want to know, like, what is it? Do you feel that is impacting you? Is it a matter of starting in the home, the parents is not watching the kids and seeing what they're listening to and monitoring and tell them that, you know, is this entertainment? Or is it just these kids who literally just don't care? And maybe you have a parent at home who's telling you, hey, this is just entertainment, leave it at that, don't take it too serious and don't go act on it because these rappers not really doing what they're saying they're doing.
Yeah.
And they're just doing it themselves and just don't care. What do you think is probably the pros and cons to what you're hearing today music?
Man, that is a great question. And I'm glad you asked that. I think, okay, so the hip hop, like life imitating art, like violence in the records, aka perpetrated to violence in the streets, right? Okay. So I think there's a lot that goes into that, you know, but I think like, okay, so we'll start from the beginning, right? So like hip hop was an art form made by Black people for Black people in the heart of New York, right?
Right.
And like the very nature of it was taking things that already existed because we were poor. You know what I mean? It was started in ghettos, right? So the very nature of it is taking things that already existed and remaking it into your thing, your song, right?
A form of expression.
And then also, but a lot of what was going on was different neighborhoods were battling at these little underground DJ parties, like little dance on the dun, 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 you know, all that, right?
Right.
So, you know, like friendly beef has always been part of it, right? So, but then you talk about the state of like how Black people are treated in America. You know what I mean? So we're talking about an art form that came out and was getting popular around the war on crack, around when Iran, the Contra thing, right? So like, it's almost like, it's like a double-edged sword for me because I feel like there's heavy governmental involvement, right? Like you got redlining, you know, you have these predetermined ghettos, you have all these places, right? So it's like, they're only at a certain point, artists are only talking about their lives. And like to say like, you know, Curtis Mayfield didn't write Pusha Man back in the 70s and he was talking about this. It was just, you know, a funk song, you know, so I think, you know, the beef became unhealthy and escalated through the 80s and 90s and then the Tupac Biggie stuff. But now with this drill movement, it's like, what do you think the evolution of that is supposed to be? You have these violent killers. And here's the thing. There's record executives who are signing people based more on their gang activity. Not only want to say gang activity because that feels, but their activity outside of the studio than they are the actual track, right? And like, you can say Chicago drill, you can say New York drill, but it's everywhere, man. Like, and it's a whole culture and it involves like social media and these kids, you know, killing each other and then going on Twitter talking about, I'm smoking the pack of the person I just fucking killed, you know? And it's like, it's crazy. We even have it here in Philadelphia. Like, man, you go and you search up. There was a big arrest by the DA very recently, but like, you know, Google J100. You know, that was a young kid in his 20s, got cut down right in front of a store while he was shooting a video, and all of their beef is, you know, all of this is documented on YouTube. Right. It's everywhere. So, you know, it's the consumers. You know, it's the consumers who are buying this stuff and wouldn't be buying it if it was about Black liberation. Right. You know what I'm saying? Right. So, but now it's morphed into this culture that no one has a handle on to the point where, and bring this back around, like they're thinking about bringing stop and frisk back into this city, right? I just did the music for a podcast. It's called Stop and Frisk. It's on WHYY.
They were heavily in New York, especially.
That's how they said Giuliani, supposedly cleaned up the streets, but we all see who, anyway, we don't got to do all that. But so my point is, it's like, there's not even community now. It's like we're scared of ourselves, and like to say that there is no like influence at home would be a lie. However, like, walk in the shoes of somebody born, into a housing project in any one of these boroughs in this city, you know what I mean? Walk in their shoes and see what they see. Go to PS13, you know what I mean? Fucking understand what a cop looks like at a very young age, you know what I mean? Have many resource officers in your school. It's like we're breeding this. Like this country is breeding this movement is truly my thing. And the rap stuff, yeah, sure, that's a way to publicize it, but like they don't want the communities that invented and make hip hop doing well and like rapping about, there's a handful of black billionaires.
They want to be able to govern it.
Yeah.
It's like,
there's money in policing, money in policing, money in prisons,
Yeah, because even with that, and you bring up a great point, because even when you're talking about like independent artists, right, they don't really like independent artists.
No, hell
they can't control them.
Correct.
Right? People like J. Cole, for example. Yeah. He's one of them, who you can say that they want to be able to govern our music, to tell us what we can put out, what we can't put out. But the things that they're telling us to put out is what's also killing these kids. And in the raps, that's technically not quote unquote drill or is not quote unquote gangster, is the ones that people love for some reason. Yeah. Right? But the ones who actually talk about their true past, their histories, and they all do it to a certain extent. I'm not saying that they don't, but what I'm saying is you got those rappers who are quote unquote like a Kendrick, who's boring. Yeah. He's not boring, and he won't make the billboards a lot because he's not being governed, right? He doesn't have a machine behind him.
I mean, I would say this: Kendrick he's a pretty successful rapper, and his last album
it was great.
It was amazing, and I think it charted on some level. But the funny thing to spin that is like Kendrick, like if you go and listen to his earlier stuff, like I'm not saying he is active, but he is very much gang affiliated, and like that he makes no bones about that. And what's intelligent about his music is he's like, this, like, it's not like the word gang. That's a dirty word. These are just people in his neighborhood who, you know what I mean? And we could talk about
other people would say, mafia and give different terminology, exactly. But the gang word, it just hurts when you hear a gang.
Yeah, exactly. Right? Well, there's connotations to it, so it's like
cultural music.
Yeah. So he's cool. He's good with all them, and that's totally fine because like, if we're talking about this problem, like, why don't we talk about gun control in America? Because the same people who want to police you are the same people who want to flood the streets with guns, you know what I mean? Or want to make it legal so anybody can go and go and buy a gun at a gun show. And in a capitalist country, like, someone's always going to supply the need, whether, so I think there's a lot that goes into it. I think it's a very sad, progression of that genre of hip hop, but there's still good music out there, and there's still like good music fans. It's just this country's appetite for violence and destruction that keep people holding on, because it's not like the same people from their neighborhoods are going to these yes, in a lot of cases, yes, but like they're not filling 1,000 people venues, you know what I mean? There's a very certain type of consumer. Yes.
See, but even with that, right? And I'm glad you bring up that point, because I always feel, even when you're talking about as politicians in general, right, your local government,
yes,
they don't really help the issues that go on in the city. And I know I'm drifting off a little bit here.
No.
It's right on lines, because they come and they tell you, vote for them, right? We want this. We're going to make this change. But I always say they sit on their high horses in the county and they come work in the city and do nothing for the city. And the kids in these neighborhoods, in inner city neighborhoods, they don't understand that. So when you use that, when you compare that to music too as well, the same kids that's going to these concerts aren't really within our demographic that's living sure in the city. They come in a concert, they come in the city, and then they go back where living in high horses of the county. So they're not dealing with that, but they don't understand the ramifications of what's going on actually in the city.
I agree.
But then, like you said, they're pouring into what they love to see, which is violence. And that's what they're going into the neighborhoods. They're picking out, hey, this kid right here, who eventually, sadly, as soon as he becomes popular, may not even see the next year. But they'll take him. I'm not going to use that term. Let me not even say what I was about to say. But they would literally feed him right to the public.
Of course,
drain him. Yeah, and I feel like a setup, right? And then, God forbid, you're hearing R.I.P.
Yeah.
And then they'll find another one from the city.
Well, because they already made their money, the record executives and everybody we're talking about. I think, ultimately, it's a setup because it's the view that a certain class of people or a certain race of people are disposable initially. You know what I'm saying? So it's the
whole system.
Yeah, you have, and I think, the music industry is a very tough situation, and that genre, the drill movement taking fire in this country, especially, and it's only in hoods, it's only in poverty-stricken areas, right? So it's that taken on, and what's crazy is, right, they're making their own content now in terms of the Instagram, the YouTubes, all that, right? And then on top of that, they're supplying the people who want to paint them as demons with the content. You know what I mean? We're Demon Time. Where do you think that came from?
Ops.
Yeah, exactly. You hear people, and more to your point, I recently heard a politician say the same thing, talking about the Nike ski masks, and everyone's, if you have it, then you're an op, and this is an op. And I'm like, listen, some dudes' heads are cold, but some things are just style, right? You know what I mean? If it was a bunch of white, like we said, if it was a bunch of kids in the suburbs wearing those ski masks, it would not be what it is. You know what I mean? But they're in the city, they're in an impoverished area. So it's just a whole attitude about this country, people of color, Black people specifically, and how it all just relates into policing, but also everybody's going to make their money on the way there in that pipeline, and that's, I think, it's tough, but there is also a lot of beautiful independent hip hop being made.
Yeah.
I'm not going to sit here and say the stuff I do is beautiful, but I like to do it. I don't try to send a violent message. First and foremost,
we going to hear your message soon. Trust you, Mary's going to definitely spit a couple bars for you to leave out of here. But and that was just always my issue. And the reason why I brought up parents, because I always like to resort back to that, right? What is it that, what are we do you feel maybe parents, they are failing the kids? Or they're not having enough conversations with them? Or is it a lack of parenting at home, as far as, especially we know in our community, a lot of missing fathers.
Yeah.
Right? It's single parenting is always the moms. And therefore I always feel, no matter what anybody say, you need that father figure in that, and especially in that boy's life.
I think you're not far off base. I think you're absolutely right on track. I know that I grew up with single mother, and
I'm not saying single moms can't handle kids. I'm not saying that.
I think,
let me make that clear. It came on. It's all right.
I think in the case, I understand what you're saying. I think in the case of single mothers, a whole person, raising a whole ass person, right? That's a full-time job. So you're talking a single mother who has to work and do all those things. I got into shit that my mother will never know. No. I've had interactions with police when I was a young kid that my mother will never know about because she was at work. So they're two-parent households are essential, and just the financial resources to raise a child. And I would say in the case of, gang culture in this country, the parents have been failed themselves. You know what I mean? Because if we're talking about the areas they're living in these food deserts and the housing projects and the heavy policing and all these areas, you know, what, like, and it's funny, and the restriction of, you know, proper birth control in this country, and sex education, you know, because it's like, ultimately, like, if somebody had a struggled life, right, and they went to a half decent public school and they had half decent, like, sexual education, birth control, whatever, like, they would have the know-how to be like, I can abstain from having a child until I get into a better situation. I'm not saying that's a cure-all, right? I'm just saying, like, marginalized communities are going to do just that, be marginalized and do things that go against the status quo that we are fed. You know what I mean? And so, you know, we're getting deep here, but like, and I think it's the parenting, but I think it's this country's responsibility as a whole. And I think, you know, it's the community's responsibility, you know, but some communities are so impoverished where, like, you can't see the light till you get, you know, 20 blocks west. Yeah. You know, and I think that is where the disconnect happens, because if someone in poverty at 17 has a child at 17, right? Like, they're just another child so it's never gonna, you know, certain things do not, like, fix themselves just because, you know.
And that's why I have hope for the new generation. I do. Yeah. Much as I would say to throw the whole government away, I do have hope from what I'm seeing, not just from Black, but even a lot of people that I know that are white and other races, who actually does want to see a change overall in the future. Yeah. And maybe it'll be a matter of time till, I would say, the new age get into the White House, and out with the old and in with the new. And I'm not saying it will maybe the 100% fix things, but to hear the conversations a lot of times what I hear on my circle, it gives hope to the next direction. You know what I mean? So it's a step forward. But that's just what I feel. I mean, even in the case of, like, for instance, Young Thug, right? You see what he's going on in his whole case. Yeah,
they're throwing everything out.
Like, it just makes me, things like that make me nervous, though. It makes me nervous because it's like, okay, is he really committing these crimes? But if here's an artist, though, who you would think would be out here to help influence these kids in a different way, but then when you hearing that they're preaching about the things on their lyrics that they probably don't in real life, I'm not saying that he's right or wrong, but he's in court. We don't know that. I don't like to jump on top of things that I'm not too sure I got 100% on. So we gonna leave that alone. But what I'm saying, I use him as an example because a lot of people, a lot of the new generation kids, they love that style. They love that music, and they think it's okay. And he's probably the one that's being used as an example right now to maybe help that turn. I think soon they're going to get rid of drill music. I really think, and I think that they're using him as an example of that. Like, hey, if you guys are rapping about these and we find out that this is what's really going on, this is the action that's going to be taken. And I know it's left in rap, Amir. I know. But at the same time, I cannot help think, though.
Listen, I'm not mad. I totally understand what you're saying, right? So I think very simply, right? In terms of that whole situation, like, it's not a stretch to say that Young Thug is a wild bull. Like, you know what I mean? And early on in his career, a lot of people who were crossing him or stopping him from doing what he wanted to do found their tour buses shot up. I don't know if he did it. I don't know if he didn't do it. But I know that if the people who want to prosecute him for doing that want to get him, they need to do it the correct way, not just on some illegal evidence, like the illegal cell phone, all that. So, like, listen.
Do you think that using him as an example would then maybe
I don't think so,
because kids to not maybe rap a certain style anymore?
Not at all. I think, like, drill music is separate kind of from what he does. What he does is kind of like pop, like ATL, like. But I don't know if, like, drill music, and that's why it's.
I mean, I won't necessarily say he's really drill, but I'm seeing about as far as the content.
Nah, because they've been trying to put rappers in jail. Like, yeah, man, like, rappers go to jail all the time. So it's just, he might be some sort of example, but, like, my best guess on this is a lot of this gets thrown out because the cops went about it the incorrect way of prosecuting him, you know, and I think, like, listen, for one thing, if we'll go back to drill real quick, like, the kids who are doing it, right? Like they're not making any bones about it. So it's like a lot of times, man, like you don't hear, like there's not many, like they get arrested, they go to jail because they put all the shit on social media, and then like they get a forensic computer person or whatever. So like, yeah, I think like violence in hip hop is here to stay, but it needs to be, like, people do need to take it with a grain of salt and understand like what's real, and that is what starts in the home. But like, if everybody in the home, you know what I mean, thinks away, like that is, you know, I don't know.
Yeah,
it's hard,
man. That's tough, but you know, Mayor, man, thank you for definitely sharing some light. Because I always have questions when it comes to music and what's causing these issues, and why a lot of rappers, these kids dying, going to prison and jail. And I know it's like pros and cons to them, and I always just have concerns, like especially for the future, the next generation. What can be done about it? And I don't think there's going to ever be one pinpoint solution, but I think some actions should be considered to be taken forward if it means saving these kids' life. So that's how I brought up the whole Young Thug situation. Like maybe that would then wake kids up. But then it might not be as effective neither. So
I mean, it might wake some people up. Like I'm sure people get lessons from everything. Like all the time. Like everybody's individual experience is different. My opinion is like you need real systemic change before you can try to you need like more like systemic change in terms of what people can like what can really affect change. Yeah. So maybe, 10 or 15 people learn from what happened to Young Thug, but like we're talking about millions, potentially. But yeah.
All right, man. And man, I know we had we do have you. I know you said you wanted to spit a few bars. I'm glad because we had a great conversation that sadly has to end. Mm-hmm. I do appreciate you coming on.
Yeah,
I'm gonna definitely give you some time to turn that Bluetooth on.
Yeah, hold on.
I do like the beat that you had selected. So, ladies and gentlemen, just please bear with us one minute. Amir's gonna give us some good rap, not some I don't know if it's disrespectful or violent, but he definitely got some great rap that he said he wants to spill and keep us to it. I love a good rap that actually has meaning to it, something that's influenced. Like everybody has a style that influences their life, but for me, it's just good quality rap that I can take and be like, all right, it doesn't have to be just necessarily just straight violent. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's just how I feel. But
yeah, of course. And I mean, even like again back then, Biggie, for example. Yeah, some of his stories were violent, but like there was a time when hip hop artists used to be the journalists of the street. Yeah, and it's not like that in a lot of the situations we've been discussing.
I like that good poetic, man. I like that Nas. I like Tupac for sure. Biggie was one. Jay-Z's mine. Jay-Z is always, to me, looked at as a businessman, so I love hearing his lyrics. You know what I mean? But Jadakiss, I won't go enough. I'm very like the old.
Yeah.
Some of you guys I like today too. I like J. Cole. I like Kendrick. I love him.
Yeah, I like anybody with talent and puts their vulnerability out there. That's how I approach it as a studio.
Some of the mumble stuff I cannot do. Though. I can't do the mumble raps. I just can't. I get turned off by it. I don't understand how you're saying. But, definitely, man. So, Mary, drop the beat, bro. We gotta hear what you got to say, y'all.
All right.
Mary's about to drop some knowledge to us, you know what I mean? Definitely, once again, he's going to let y'all know his socials in the end so y'all can follow him. But once he engineers music. So,
here we go.
Drop the beat.
Yo, it's really nothing really. Matter of fact, it don't be silly. It's getting chilly. The sensibility took me out of Philly. Claustrophobic in the city. Psychotropic, smoking litty. My whole committee is snow blowing. Rolling up some 50s and slow going with no momentum. Deviated septum. Inebriated extra. Cause this shit is never ending. It's a setup. Tailor made to fuck your head up. I fade and get my bread up in scenes. It's the placenta you raise. About the cheddar. But you ain't paying for sessions. I got wicked transgressions. For shorties and short dresses. Bore me with more lessons. I'm more with no guesses. begging, pleading, but I'm believing what the test says. Call me sensei and bowing in the dojo for hours. I'm going local, but this shit is only minutes. I'm finishing another Guinness and chasing when I glance finish. Pull my pen out, turn the mic, I'll get busy and start spitting. What? That's Eddie Nash. But AKA Amir Matuk, come find me, Eddie Nash Productions on Instagram, Eddie Nash Hip Hop on TikTok, Third Story Recording, 5120 Walnut Street, West Philadelphia.
All right, y'all. I'm gonna definitely drop it too on the episode. We'll let y'all know his links. Guys, thank you for joining us again on another episode of Hot Rod Baby Topic. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. It's your boy Hot Rod. It's your boy Amir.
Peace.